Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us either live or later on virtually. I'm Jim Kaleka, and I'm happy to be a part of actually the second go around of our Fox Sales Coaching Leadership, Maximizing Performance and Smart Goals webinar. Tom, how many times do we repeat ourselves in the terms of, this is the most important thing?
We say that a lot, but I guess we pick topics that are critical, but boy, Jim, this is one where most companies, their planning processes likely aren't smart. And therefore there may be things that fall through the cracks that wouldn't need to be that way.
Yeah, and I think that probably if you put yourself in a position where goals are being set for you, like you're given marching orders to say this is what you have to do, and you and your colleagues think it's unreachable, or this is really insane in terms of a goal. A lot of times goals are just pulled out of a hat. Hey, we need to hit a number. A supplier says this is what you need to do, or the sales manager says that. I think being more methodical about the way people approach goals, whether it be personal in their life, or definitely professionally, can make all the difference in the world in terms of success. So without going on and yammering about why it's so important, I'd like to take a couple minutes just to remind everybody that this is being recorded so that we can use it at a later date. You can access it. You can watch it multiple times if you like. You can share it with your family, your friends, your neighbors, your kids. If you run out of things to do, then you certainly can.
You'll be the hit of the neighborhood. I'm telling you right now.
Exactly. You won't be a bore.
Don't bring them free samples of beer or wine or spirits. Bring them education. Yeah, that's what they're looking for.
Yeah. Make it, pry their eyeballs open. So at any rate, we appreciate the fact that you're joining us, and we're going to be incorporating polls. So you should be expecting that. It's meant to be interactive, so please feel free. Otherwise, we're going to be forced to call on you. And before I turn it over, or we turn it to our main man, Mr. Tom Fox, want to introduce Sean Fox, who will be co-facilitating. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sean. Give yourself that's a nice white hat. It's better than that red hat you were wearing the other day, which almost seemed like scarlet.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
I shot 76 wearing that hat on Saturday.
Oh, okay. So were you rubbing it in with your dad?
It's bringing me a little good luck as of late.
Okay, well, those colors seem to be bringing up that team in Ohio some luck. Yeah. I have to just say before you go,
the winner's color.
Anybody listening, you don't have to be, under a rock to know that the Michigan football program is a storied program. It's the oldest one. It's the most successful in terms of wins of any NCAA Division I team in the country, in history. The poll came out this year, the preseason rankings, which don't mean a lot, but the coaches, there weren't enough votes from coaches to even have Michigan be in the top 25. Now, that really says something. Sean, I understand.
Yeah, losing record last year, Jim.
Last year, they haven't won the Big Ten in how long? Hey, I'm a fan. I'm disgusted by this. Disgusted. And I think every Michigan fan should be disgusted by that.
Well, how many years were we ranked at the beginning and not ranked at the end? So I kind of like this.
Yeah. Tell me the last time Ohio State was not ranked at the beginning and ranked at
not
the
in
end.
My lifetime.
Or we're ranked in the beginning and we're still ranked at the end. We need to get
every year of my lifetime.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm getting all worked up. Sean, do you have anything positive to say?
We're excited to be here this morning. This is, I think, a fun topic. I know that we sent out some notifications in the month of July for the second half of the year that we got some feedback from a lot of the Fox Selling System users that some of the advertised webinars or live trainings of 3 to 4 hours, I think had a couple people shy away. So we've kind of altered the second half of the year, and I'm sure everyone that's watching this on record will have probably seen this notification before, but we're trying to keep the webinars to their live trainings to the second half of the year closer to about 90 minutes And we're also toying with, and I talked to Tom this morning, for the calendar year of 2022, maybe offering some of, or if not all of them, in the afternoon, because I know we've gotten a lot of pushback, especially from a lot of our distributor clients, that the mornings are a little bit more difficult for people to be able to join live. So we're toying with that next year. So if anyone's watching this on record and has any opinions or suggestions for us, we're thinking next year, maybe doing them at 2 o'clock Eastern and keeping them closer to about 90 minutes, just to ensure that people are able to take advantage of these live trainings live.
Makes sense.
With that, Tom and Jim, I'll pass it back to you.
Okay, I have to introduce this guy. Those of you who may have not had any exposure to him in the past, you're about to be wowed. This is somebody who's been training in this industry for 30 years, well respected. Probably, you know, a unanimous. If you interviewed the top 25 beer supplier distributor coaches, he would certainly be at the top of the list in terms of.
Well, I'd be in the top 25 if you only polled 25.
No, you'd be in the top, in the top one.
If there's only 25 to poll, I'd have to be in the top 25.
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to just turn it over to Mr. Tom Fox. And Tom, before you get into your rap, do you know what that bridge is behind?
That would be the Ambassador Bridge.
That would be wrong. Sean?
That would be the Mackinac Bridge.
No, wrong again.
It's the Tappan Zee Bridge.
It's a very famous.
Milwaukee.
Okay, Tom, why don't you just go ahead? It's the Brooklyn Bridge.
The Brooklyn Bridge. Brooklyn Bridge.
I thought we were talking about the Bay City Milwaukee Bridge.
No.
Brooklyn to Manhattan.
Yeah, I was in a boat. I took that picture.
I love Brooklyn.
Mm.
Peter Luger's. Better bring
Yeah.
cash.
The pizzeria right on the other side of that bridge. If you go that way on the bridge,
Gotta
just
love
over
it.
the bridge, there's a pizzeria, 2 of them.
I've never had bacon as an appetizer at a fine dining establishment until I went to Peter Luger's.
Really?
And of course, Sean's like, we need at least 3 pieces. And like 1 piece is like a fillet. It's like a huge, I mean, I don't even think we ate it all.
Yeah, it's like the size of pork belly. It's like that thick.
Yeah.
It was massive. It was, and like it was good, but you didn't, you needed a little, you didn't need a half, you needed a little slice. Anyway, so yeah, we're delighted to be here, everybody. Thank you for kicking in. I would say this is a big opportunity for nearly every company that we get exposed to that could tighten up their planning for one simple reason, and that is to simply get more things done. The SMART goal planning process, when you think about the topic, maximizing performance requires to get things done. Things like more distribution, more execution promotionally, whatever we're trying to do, get more incentives with our distributor, get more, get better pricing, whatever we're trying to get accomplished. The more we can think it through in terms of the planning steps, which I just don't think, I think a lot of people are smart, they're experienced, but they wing it. A lot of people wing it. And when you wing it, things are going to fall through the cracks. You're not going to get as much done. And productivity is going to be, a casualty. So I mean, I think the topic is critical. And we probably should spend more time on it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Tom, I think too that another, because why? I mean, why is that?
I just think, I don't know. I think historic, Jim, I think it comes down to culture. You know the definition of culture,
right?
It's what we tolerate. Right. And if leaders in our industry have tolerated the masses to plan in not the most efficient and comprehensive manner, then guess what? And it's funny, even the companies that I would say I have been exposed to that tell me, oh yeah, SMART goal planning is how we do it. Mm-hmm. And then we find out how they do it, and they don't really incorporate some of the elements that to me are critical. Yeah. So it across the board, and it's something, that we have brought into our little business. We talk about smart goal planning, in our meetings, and at the beginning of the year, we build our SMART goals, and we probably could be revisiting those more frequently. I think some of the things that we talked about yesterday, frankly, is around the idea of getting more things done, which I'm very proud of. So anyway, in context of where we are, again, today is the 7th of 10 programs that we're doing. You can see the ones coming up in the next few months around developing people, which is, again, another unbelievably fundamental, but yet I talk about this a lot. How many people are going to retire from our industry this year in management and would say, you know what, I don't know that I've ever coached. I've managed, but I don't know that I've really coached and developed people. So that's a big opportunity. Facilitating sales meetings, another one. Who's too good at that? No one's too good at that. That, again, that's another fundamental that I think there's a lot of best practices that people could be bringing to the table. I was talking to my daughter this morning. She had a role play that was an important component for her early evaluation as a new employee. Elizabeth, I don't know if I told you, Jim, I think she joined HubSpot.
Yeah,
told me. Yeah,
that's great.
So HubSpot has like this 30-day, level of mastery that you have to hit. So she had a role play this morning, and she said that she practiced for 2 hours.
Wow.
So I said, you know what happens when you practice for 2 hours? You know your stuff.
Yeah.
And so, and you get confident.
Right.
And without it, you're not going to be confident. You're going to wing it. And when you wing it, it's going to get noticed, and it's not going to be mastery for sure. And then the last one is, again, and maybe this last one, Jim, kind of what we talked about earlier, this idea of execution.
Yeah.
This one speaks more to scorecarding, which is a critical one, but every element of the Fox selling system, frankly, could be something that we really spend some time on to help every one of our clients execute. And let me just say it this way, they get more of a return for their investment.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
we're going to do that.
So you've heard me use this word a few times. You're probably wondering, what quote does Tom have today? So I am not a fan of this guy at all. Matter of fact, when there's that little mini series that came out a year ago or so, a year and a half ago, I didn't watch it.
Yeah.
I saw it in real life. I don't need to see it again.
Yeah.
What was that called? I can't remember what it was called.
Oh man.
MJ, great, yeah. It was like a 5 or 6 part documentary.
Yeah, I mean, it was all about them having to get past Detroit. Detroit was the only team that he never had a winning record against in his career.
Yeah, and he seems a little bitter about it too. I thought the way he handled it. And, there are a lot of people who are not a fan of Isaiah, and I can understand it. I really, truly can. But I think that
he was a competitor. I mean, Isaiah could drive among the giants and somehow score. It was a joy to watch.
Underrated.
And I mean, some of our big guys like Lambier and they just pounded Jordan. I mean,
Rodman, Lambier,
and who was the other guy? Just a tough guy.
Came off the bench. There was a guy that came off the bench before Rodman starting. I can't remember who it was. Big guy.
Who?
Vinnie Johnson?
Well, no, he was more of a guard, but Dumars covered Jordan. Like, he was the guy that mostly covered
and shut him down.
He did
down Michael Jordan.
Anyway, I did want to honor Michael. I think this quote says a lot. A lot of what we do is we talk about the fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know this, Jim, but my dad, Pat Fox, wrote a article in the Stro had like a Stro Eagle newsletter that went out to all their distributors. Mm-hmm. And my dad, he wrote an article every month, and it was back to basics with Pat Fox.
Great.
And he would talk about merchandising and talk about selling and talk about, execution. It was all the fundamentals. And I do believe much of what we talk about, certainly SMART goals and this notion of maximizing performance, comes down to fundamentals that, if you look at the quote, when you get them down, which I don't think many companies have, the level of everything else you do will rise, which I just think is a brilliant quote from a guy who has a losing record against the Pistons.
So what's interesting is that you have companies, and I've worked for organizations that this applied to at some point or another, and that is they have expectations of practicing to become perfect or better or improve within other functions within the organizations, where they can't allow for mistakes to happen or performance to be poor, whether it be operations, where it can be, first and foremost, safety, doing things correctly, or in accounting, where you can't make mistakes because it can end up, costing the company big dollars, et cetera. And yet the engine that is bringing in the money, the sales team, oftentimes does not devote time to practice and becoming better at what they do.
Right.
So caught up in the everyday that they don't really look at sharpening the main saw that needs to be sharpened.
Yeah, that's a great point.
How about that one?
Yeah, and Sean, he grew up in a household where saws and a lot of tools, that was just DIY. That's what we did. I'm just kind of a fix it guy. I can't stop. I'm just always working on something, right, Sean? I mean, that's how you grew up.
Trying to think of an example of something that we would have brought in the handyman for that would have been embarrassing to admit.
Yeah, like
the dishwasher is the garbage disposal was stuck. Call in a plumber. Call in somebody.
Christmas toys.
All you have to do is turn that little wrench thing. Oh yeah, call in somebody.
Christmas toys.
Oh,
bringing somebody, a handyman to put together.
We just bought our
presents.
We just brought our grandson Patrick Declan this little car.
Uh-huh.
We got a guy who builds it's got the little handle and it pushes. It's probably was like one screw, but my wife's like, he can't do it.
Yeah. The guy across the street that I've mentioned to you, we were talking about him earlier. He is nonstop in his yard. I mean, if I told you all the things that he has done since he's moved into this house, it would make your eyes spin. I'm tired. I've told him, please stop. Just stop. I can't take it anymore in 90-degree heat. Anyway.
There's better things to do than that. Okay, so while we don't need to launch the poll, Shawnee, I do think it's important to speak to, when we throw out this poll, historically, we come up with different options like integrity, vision, excellence, influence, example, there might be others. And it is amazing, even people who have maybe been through the classroom training elements of this, they ultimately don't typically come up with the word influence. And when they see it and they kind of think about it, it becomes pretty spot on that it is, we are trying to influence. And, I just think sometimes, Jim, that people feel like if you just have the rank, if you have the title, you're going to influence people because you've got the authority. And it's not true. I mean, you have to inspire someone to make changes. And how do you inspire someone? Well, you could motivate them with an incentive. You could develop them and get them better at whatever their task and job is. And that's what coaching is all about. You can't go too far than coaching to think of how do you influence someone. Well, the more you can observe, the better ability you're going to have to coach them and to influence them, and specifically the way they think about things in order to be better at doing whatever they have to be doing. We always say no one's too good at selling. No one's too good at it. And I'm sure that's with any profession. If no one's too good at the offensive line, no one's too good at quarterback, no one's too good, which means that you got to continually get better. And I just sometimes think that if we don't think about it, then you can get stuck in a rut and you're not getting better. And I know some people believe that if you're not improving, you're going backwards.
Yeah, that's I would be one of those people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably varies on a scale or the curve in terms of how much time it takes for you to actually go better if you're not improving. But if you look at stuff, if you look at tasks, skills, behavior, whatever it is, I play drums.
Yeah.
If I don't play, I mean, it doesn't take long for the timing to get off or whatever it might be, or not be able to have the strength in the arms to do things that you wanted to do before. So I'm fascinated by the amount of time that professionals in any in anything, music, sports, whatever it might be, that particularly in sports though, that they spend practicing.
Yeah.
They do, and fundamentals, basics. And these are guys and women that have gone through their whole entire lives doing the thing that they are a pro at now. And yet they're still doing the basic fundamentals. And why should it be any different with, our profession, what we're trying to get?
And how many people do we see, Jim, that go, yeah, role playing, it's not realistic. We don't see any value in doing it. And I think that is a lame response.
I agree.
I don't care. If we put someone on the spot to say, all right, uncover my need, I'm going to be vague. If you can't do that on command in a car as a chance to practice, or gosh, of course, in the outlet, actually, when we're with our customer, if you can't do it on command, then you can't do it.
Right. Agreed.
And if you can't recite a selling story that aligns, like and again, a lot of these things can be thought of more as rehearsal than actually role play. If that makes someone feel a little bit more comfortable, because we call it a rehearsal. And there's only one reason why most role plays, and I say this because it's true until it's not. Because how many role plays at West Side Beer the last year you were there were not any longer awkward?
Oh, I would say the vast majority of
vast majority.
We kind of had a policy or a position that we weren't going to, some people just have that innate fear. They get up in front of people and they can't, they freeze. And so in those instances, we would, maybe give a pass or make the room smaller or whatever it might be. But really, once you start doing it, because you're used to it. You get the story down in your head and it's not that difficult. You have more confidence. I think that's really what happens, is they develop confidence and they're not fearful.
And confidence is never, let me think of the word to say. It's always earned. I mean, you can't manufacture and fake confidence. You will get exposed in a painful way, and we've all had it happen. I mean, I can't tell you. I remember when I worked at Miller Brewing Company, my boss's boss, I was part of a little breakout group, and we're doing this little case study, and he's like, all right, Fox, you present it. And I'm up there, and the pseudo customer tries to trip me up a bit. I didn't know what I was looking at. I was trying to wing it. Just maybe at that point, hadn't really developed the skill to really process things as quickly, as I was eventually able to learn. My boss's boss, if he was up there, and of course he didn't need to be up there because he was already, incredibly good at this. And it was embarrassing, because I remember like thinking, what do I say next? I didn't really know what I was looking at, and I choked, and it was painful. I didn't like it. And then therefore, I was like, I've got to practice this and learn it. Otherwise, I'm going to continue to embarrass myself. And that's not the legacy I wanted.
Well, I think it's interesting when you have the people who kind of scoff at the idea of rehearsing or role playing, and then they get in the position where they actually have to do it. And then and they're exposed. I mean, I don't want to expose people, but the fact of the matter is, you're not going to learn from doing things right all the time. I mean,
no.
Learns.
Well, yeah, so, you're right.
Right. And so speaking of role plays and, my former employer, you remember Kenny, right?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Kenny's a story. I mean, Kenny is one of the greatest success stories.
It's really incredible. I love that guy.
Of your training of anybody that I've encountered. And then maybe there are others, but just for the sake of people watching, this is somebody who had zero formal training experience, hired as a merchandiser, came to this country from Jamaica. So there was a little bit of a language barrier, not because he didn't understand, speak English, he spoke it, but he had an accent, which sometimes made things a little bit more difficult for people to understand. And he struggled in these role plays we were doing. I mean, in the basics of the fundamentals of the Fox selling process, the profits process, selling process. And he got it. He stuck with it.
No one wanted it more than him. I mean,
exactly.
He was steadfast. You could just tell this is going to be someone who is going to be a master of this relatively quickly. You could tell.
And he was.
And he was.
And going out and doing ride with, I'm not going to go through every single detail and aspect of this, but not only did he become a great salesperson and I want to say a spokesperson for the whole system because he believed in it, he's now a territory manager.
Is he really good for him? I didn't know
that. A liquor store recently here in Canton, and I went in and I just asked about something. I said, "Oh, by the way, who's your beer rep?" And they said, "Well, I can't think of his name." And I said, "Well, his supervisor. I know a supervisor. He was just in here earlier today." I said, "Oh, who's that?" He says, "Kenny." I said, "Black guy?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. He's now a territory."
That's awesome. What a success story.
Isn't that great? That's great.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Beyond great. So Jim, just the whole idea for attitude, we got to get people thinking about SMART goals in ways that maybe they need to be open to doing it a little differently, but I'm afraid in many cases just doing it at all. We got to get people to buy into that. So hopefully today's exposure will get people bought in on that. And then for those, again, everyone that's going to be on this webinar, Sean and Jim is a leader. This is the coaching, coaching day. This is our coaching program. And so I want you thinking about the culture within not only your company, but your team. Every company culture is made up of the culture of every sub team that's part of the company. And, there's an opportunity for any leader to seize, their culture and say, this is how we're going to do it. And I'm not going to tolerate anything less, because some planning processes work, some don't. And if you don't have a planning process and you truly wing it, well, we know that doesn't work. So if you work on my team, we're going to follow SMART goal planning. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to get people buying into it, and we're going to benefit from all that. And so from that standpoint, I want people to realize you own your culture. If you don't like the culture of your team, look in the mirror, because you're the one that's tolerated things that shouldn't have been tolerated. And your culture depends on it. It depends on your leadership to exert the things that matter and tolerate nothing less. And I think too many leaders, it's unconscious. They tolerate things because at the moment it just seemed easier to tolerate it than to correct it, and all that would go into it, whether it would be some drama, confrontation. Most people run from that. They don't want to do it. And so in this case,
somebody performing, and even though they perform well, there are a lot of things about their attitude, behavior, how they treat others, whatever, not a great teammate. And because they perform and they produce, sometimes leadership will overlook that, which is, unfortunate.
Sean, you look at our little family. You had 2 siblings, and your mother and I. We had the 5 family values, and I don't know that I did a good job, frankly, of getting you all to buy in. I think I probably forced them on all of you, but there were certain things that
probably.
There were certain things your mom wouldn't tolerate. There were certain things that I didn't tolerate, and and probably things that you're not tolerating from Quigley.
Well, yeah, we're being a little bit more lenient every day. He sat in the middle of the couch last night for like 20 minutes, and I allowed it.
Shawnee.
Yeah.
That becomes the culture. Now the culture is, that's what he does, right?
Your only role really was don't disrespect your mother.
Yeah, I could not. There was not I wouldn't tolerate one instance.
Right.
If the key to the side garage door was not kept in the flower pot, you were in big trouble.
Yeah.
Swear to God, like that would be. My dad would rather have us get an F in a class than come home and that key was not in that pot.
Yeah.
What about wearing socks outside?
Yeah, that was he would get mad at that. I forgot about that one.
Well, when you wear socks outside, you're just basically saying, I want you to buy me a new pair of socks because I don't respect what you've given me, and so I'm going to wear them outside. They're going to be a hole. I'm going to throw them away, and you're going to have to buy me more socks.
Yeah, but sometimes if that basketball was just sitting there, you wanted to just run up and take a jump shot, and if you didn't have your shoes on, you didn't care.
Yeah.
F minus.
Yeah.
F minus.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I don't think I can tell you the family values right now.
Yes, you could.
Seek to understand.
Seek to understand.
Do things right the first time.
Do it right the first time.
What would Jesus do?
What would Jesus do?
Respect.
Respect. I think there may have been one more, but those were the biggies.
If you want to play high school basketball, you need to learn how to dribble with your left hand.
Yeah.
That was probably the fifth one.
Yeah, and I would get them on the driveway and get them to start practicing, and then they start throwing the ball at each other.
Rory and he.
So, hey, just one of the last things I want to speak about as far as like how do we really influence someone's attitude. I think it's important to point out there's one way, and this is probably what I didn't do a good job of, Sean, as a father. You do the best you can, and I know better now, but how do you get the path to influence someone's attitude? It's getting them to think by asking them questions about whatever it is you want them to think about. And if you've hired reasonable people will probably think in a similar way. They'll probably buy into something if they're given the freedom to think about it. The problem is a lot of managers don't offer that freedom. They just tell, this is the new company policy. This is the incentive. This is the program. This is the new item, without ever letting people think about it to come up with what would very likely be a similar conclusion and similar buy-in. But we just see many folks take for granted that, hey, I'm the boss, and guess what? When I say this is what we're going to do, I don't have to get you to think about it because I'm just telling you the way it is. And that's not good leadership. It's not. And that leads to, again, we're not going to get into that. We have one slide on empathy. I'm not going to get into it, Jim or Sean, but again, that comes down to empathy. And it's like, and you could change the word to curiosity, but like if you think about all the demos that we've done, one of the ways that we've gotten better at these demos is when we talk about anything, we have the curiosity to say, all right, what do you think about that? So we just walked you through this element of the Fox selling system. What do you think? We probably weren't doing a lot of that early on, but now we're getting really good because I think there's a curiosity that's legit. It's like, I want to really know what you think.
Right.
And oh, by the way, that's the way to influence someone.
Tom, I know you don't want to get into empathy, and I'm not going to go there. I just want to say that it's been so evident recently too, because when that question is asked, we have not had one time where somebody's reply was, oh, I don't know.
Right.
Yes. What do you think of that? Or, I don't know. I mean, we're getting leaders in organizations to open up and say, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, sadly, this is, they're being reflective on their situation and circumstances. And we're not talking about things that are uncommon behavior. This is common behavior.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, although I do think empathy is still pretty elusive, pretty uncommon.
No, I mean, people, having issues and concerns about their organization.
Yeah.
And I think by approaching them and asking them to think, they're more comfortable about opening up. Yeah. And I really think that just then applies to anybody. If you're a supervisor and you have something and asking them, well, what do you think about this? Then they're more comfortable. If there's not a comfort level, and it's hard for people to change.
It
Somebody
is.
once told me a leopard doesn't change their spot. So when you talk about the do it because I said to, I mean, there are a lot of leaders who that's the way they were raised. That's the way that they were coached. That's the way they expect, and they're comfortable with that. They truly are.
Because I think their generation, we leaders could get away with it. I mean, our generation, my boss, I think he was like, don't think, just do what I say. Don't think. Well, that's not going to work in today's generation. It's just not. And it's not only more respectful, but again, if you go back to SMART goal planning, there's only one way you're going to get someone to buy into changing. And like you say, do I really believe that a leopard won't change their spots? I don't know that I believe that, because if we got a leopard to think, they might be willing to change their spots if we got them to think about it. Right. And it's the same with this, SMART goal planning. I know people are probably cringing, going, okay, whatever. Right. It's a planning process. Get over it. It's not that big of a deal. Well, you know what? There are a couple elements that are different. And if we can get people to think about the differences, reasonable people are going to go, you know what? After having thought about it, this is a better process than what I was currently doing. Mm-hmm. Then change can happen. And the only way we're ever going to really ever, from a courtesy or professional standpoint, treat our employees that way is because we want to know what they think. It's like, hey, I'm buying into SMART goals. I've seen the light. I want you to. And I can't put your face into it and go, do it. Versus, hey, how is, again, how many times have you heard me in a seminar say, how is this different from what you are currently doing? When people think about what is different is when a light bulb can go off. Mm-hmm. And that was only asked because of empathy of like, I want to know what they think. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to what they think. I want to understand where they're coming from. Do they see it the same way that I see it? So the more you can do it in a genuine, non-manipulative way, it's a safe environment, and our teams are going to be thinking. And when they think, honestly, good things are happening. But I just think that the lack of vulnerability holds so many managers back from being empathic, that therefore they still hold on to this more authoritarian approach to managing people, which is not effective.
Authoritative.
In today's world.
What's that, Johnny? Authoritative?
Authoritative?
Yeah, authoritative. Easy for you to say. All right, now again, we're not going to run the poll, but we talk about the pillars, and a lot of people think, well, it's got to be empathy, it's got to be a great communicator, it's got to be integrity. All those are good, but I think the brilliance of these three pillars captures the big picture, and it captures getting into the weeds. So we're not going to talk a lot about vision and mission, although that is important to talk about because it sets the stage for, why we would do anything differently in order to, achieve a really high aspirational level. And most of the things that we have to do, we have to develop people. So if someone's not doing SMART goals right now, we got to develop them, to do it. So we know that the 1 and 3 are important. Today, we're going to talk more about top performance. And before we really get into how do we perform at a higher level, I'll get into all the different levers we can pull. The last slide here on kind of a setup is just basically this idea that our vision and mission is our identity. And I've had so much fun, in the last couple of years, whenever I talk to any client of going, like, what would you want your customers to say about you? What would you want them to say? And, it's always, there's a range of things that are kind of in common. Partner, we want to be the best. We want to be world-class. And so that identity is important, because then we have to put systems in place to get the outcomes that we want. So today, the system we're going to focus on is going to be SMART goal planning, because that's a better system than a lot of systems, or it's frankly a way better system than no system at all. So how do we get things done? Well, we talked about motivation. And so I'm not going to get into all of these things here, but there's a million ways we can motivate people, and we should. motivation is a lever we can pull, whether it's a financial motivation. It is an opportunity for them to progress in their career. It's a way for people to get recognition. There's a lot of ways to motivate, and we always kid around, but not always does the best team win. Sometimes the teams that are motivated the most, and I don't know, again, everyone knows we love U of M, but it is interesting how I've seen articles. Harbaugh has put back into place this huge focus on Ohio State. Whereas when he first got there, Brady Hoke had a Ohio State clock and a Michigan State clock in the locker room. He took them both down. Every game's important, and now I think he recognizes that if he's going to have any, and hopefully it's not too late, but if he has any legacy at U of M, he's going to have to beat Ohio State, because if the team's working their heads off to beat Ohio State, guess what's going to happen? They're certainly going to beat every other team.
Right, exactly.
Which they haven't been doing, and I always, kid around with my Michigan State friends. Their coaching, frankly, has been way better than ours because they've won with less talent.
Yeah.
A couple years, when some of Hoke's years and Ryder State had really, really good talent and maybe was better than U of M, but their coaching was way better.
Mhm.
And the Harbaugh years, we've had better talent than Michigan State, and yet they're 3-3 against Harbaugh. That's a credit to Michigan State. You can't say it. So motivation works. So enough about motivation. Now, when you think about direction is all around, what are we going to focus on? It's, the whole portfolio management thing. I think our industry is actually pretty good at that. But let's get into quickly. He turned off the mic. Okay. So let's get into SMART goal planning. So, Jim, I'm going to conduct a one-person poll.
Okay.
Where you are the audience.
Okay.
True or false, Jim? The attainable step in SMART goal planning is essentially a yes or no step. Can we attain the goal? Is it attainable or is it not? True or false?
This is tricky. I think
It is tricky. That's why I'm asking.
Okay, I'm going to go with no.
With false.
Yeah, it's
why is it false? Why is it false?
Because I think that what you can do, the idea of it being attainable it's important. I mean, it might be a stretch. It might require, effort.
Extra planning.
Well, yeah, and execution, execution. But I don't think that it is essentially just a yes or no, because if you just say no, you can't. If it's not attainable, then why are you bothering even to try it?
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you are right. It is false. And the reason why it's false is because the A portion is not if we can attain. It is way more about how we are going to attain. It is a huge aspect to me, Jim. If you look at SMART goal planning, to me, the S and the A steps are the difference makers. If we can identify specifically what we're trying to get accomplished, and a lot of times that S can be really aggressive. We're trying to increase distribution from X to X plus, and it might be 400 new accounts, 300, whatever that number is. It might seem daunting, but then you can even take it to the next level. It might not just be, we want to get in 400 accounts, but it's got to be these 400 accounts. It can't be any account. And then it might also be, it's got to be cold. We can't just make the placement. It's got to be cold. But if you don't plan that out, guess what's going to happen? All of a sudden, you're going to get 1 million warm shelf placements, and then 6 months later, why didn't this work?
Right.
Maybe part of the S would be, it's got to be adjacent to Truly. It's got to be adjacent to White Claw. If it's not, then that placement doesn't count, because we want to be in the right adjacency to give that particular package the greatest chance for success. But how many plans would go to that level? Maybe it's also got to buy 2 cases. Can't, if they don't buy 2, then, they're going to be out of stock. And next thing you know, that we might not reorder it. You got to bring in 2. all elements of S that if you don't think about S, you might just go, get me 400 placements.
Mhm.
Okay. Then the A portion would be, okay, how are we going to do it? Well, if you're the leader, you're going to go, I better give them a sell sheet. I better go into that Fox selling system, and I better create like a typical selling scenario that, hey, if you go through 3 cases a week, this is the revenue impact. We got to arm, there's no way we're going to get in 400 accounts. So depending on how aggressive you are with S, then should dictate how much support are we going to provide in the A step. Maybe we're going to do a kickoff meeting. Maybe we're going to do an incentive. Maybe we're going to do it. Maybe we're going to offer, in the top 20 accounts, a demo, a tasting.
Mhm.
Maybe we're going to do some on-premise promotions to get sampling out there. You see where I'm going with this?
Absolutely.
We're limited to one thing, our creativity and imagination.
Mhm.
So it's like limitless to how detailed we could get. But I can't tell you how many plans I see and they go, we want to get 400 accounts. And it's pretty simple, Jim, to influence someone when you go, wait a minute, is there a better way?
Yeah.
So Sean, you're not exhibiting the leadership skills that we're trying to portray here in the Fox selling system, especially the sales coaching and leadership class, when you are tolerating things from my dear Quigley that leaders shouldn't tolerate.
Yeah, he heard the door and was sitting underneath me, and we got to get his nails clipped, but he stood up right away and just dug right into 2 of my toes.
And you're tolerating that?
Yeah, I got to get the nails clipped.
Do you need new socks?
I'm barefoot. Even worse.
Jim, the other steps aren't unimportant, but measurable is how are we going to measure it?
Right.
So a lot of times it's VIP, or it could be a syndicated data source. The relevancy, it is important to speak to the relevancy. If the goal doesn't have any big impact on the performance of the company, it might be tough to have a lot of energy around it. So that's usually not an issue, but you should lay it out of courtesy. This is why it's important.
Well, Tom, for a second, I mean, it doesn't, the way you're describing this, I think somebody watching might think that, oh man, that's a lot of effort to put into a goal. But I'm sitting here and thinking that it doesn't have to be every single SMART goal you create is not going to have 16 specific steps to it.
No.
Right? I mean, I think that just the point you're trying to make is that if the S part is well thought out before you go any further, or the A, it's thought out. Yeah, listen, we can attain this and how we're going to get it. But it doesn't mean that, I mean, and I'm thinking about it in terms of, we used to take, when we would do our brand forecasting for the upcoming year for budget purposes, then you'd get in, and I mean, it was a really swag approach to it. We'd look at what we sold the previous year. Then we, and in many cases, the supplier was in the room with us while we were establishing these projections. And so they would say, yeah, we'd push back a little bit, but there was nothing smart about the way we went about it. And especially when we got down to the lower volume brands, where you still had to put in a budget forecast for them. So it is a goal, and it would just be, it would just whatever, just put whatever in there. There was no thought given to it. Well, I think,
yeah, no, you're right.
Smaller brands may not require as much thought, but they still should require some.
I would argue that the smaller brands probably need more TLC. The bigger brands, hey, do I need to have someone practice selling Bud Light?
Yeah, right.
Or Modelo? I don't know that we need.
I think right now the bud wholesalers will say you need somebody to practice it because it's been in declining trends for years.
I know that's true. But you're right. The other elements aren't unimportant, but I do think you need to have a time frame, and the shorter that time frame, the better. It shouldn't be a 6-month goal that you'd lose focus relatively quickly. And I do think it's a courtesy just to tie into the big. How the relevancy? Why hey, if it's a seltzer goal, hey, the relevancy is this is an emerging segment that we want to get our fair share of, and so we gotta win in seltzers for us to win overall. So that's how it ties into the big picture. Whatever.
What's your thought on? You just mentioned the long term. If it's too long of a period, people are going to lose focus, et cetera. And yet there are some annual goals, right? I mean,
yeah.
with
Yeah.
that you break it down into increments? Does that become part of the, the strategy?
That becomes part of it, 100%. Hey, listen, we're going to break it out. And then maybe part of the strategy would be for annual business plan. And let's be honest, Jim, you know, some of the suppliers, Anheuser-Busch would have a monthly meeting.
Sure.
They're not letting it go much any longer than a month to say, where are we at?
Right.
And I did training with AB, and I know that they were teaching their district managers to have those monthly meetings as a way of course correcting when things weren't going as planned.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought their process was pretty sound. Not every supplier can get a monthly meeting to recap an ABP, but you can certainly do it quarterly.
Sure. Yep.
And that should be part of the attainable. How are we going to attain it? Well, we're going to have a quarterly meeting, and we're going to have a meeting, and maybe part of it would be a meeting with leadership, but also a meeting with the rank and file, the entire sale. I'm going to attend the general meeting. That's part of it. That doesn't mean your distributor's going to accept it, but that should be part of what you're asking for, because without it, I don't know that we're going to be able to accomplish the goal. So, and again, if you think about why do many goals not get accomplished, what would be your answer, Sean? Why are some goals ultimately not achieved?
For number one, they're not written down.
I think that's a biggie.
Or they're not something that's thought about regularly.
Yeah.
I know a lot of, you see a lot of either in movies or whatever, but a lot of people put them, maybe print it out and put it on maybe the bottom right or somewhere in the bathroom. So
yeah.
Every morning and every night, it's kind of like a reminder.
Yep.
Or somewhere along their dresser.
Yep. I like that. So personally speaking, I got on the scale this morning. Sean, I weighed less this morning than I did at your wedding in 2018.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Nice.
And it's not just because I was hoping to lose weight. There is a strategy. Here it is. Specifically, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to lose 20 pounds. Now, we always want the S to include the starting point and the ending point, but for reasons that are none of your business, you don't need to know what my weight was at the start or what it is today. But most goals, because 20 pounds for a 400-pound person wouldn't maybe be significant.
No.
But 20 pounds for a 200-pound guy, that's a little bit more significant. So that's part of the relevancy piece, Now, how are we going to measure it? Well, the scale. We're going to jump on the scale. Jumping on the scale is going to be how we measure it. Look at the strategy. The strategy is most of this goal. I mean, you look at most of it is how you can't just say, I'm going to lose 20 pounds and go, okay, a month later, how did I do? If you don't make changes, in this case here, hey, I try every meal to leave 20 to 25% of the portion not consumed. That's one of my strategies. And guess what? Rarely do I leave a table hungry. Rarely. I see, Jim, you're looking at this going, that's a F-, Fox. If you get a plate of pasta.
And then I don't want to even bring the starving kids, in the underdeveloped countries that would just, be able to eat for a week on what you leave on the table. So I would just say, put smaller portions on your plate. Damn it.
Well, we're moving, so you can imagine right now we're not using our kitchen too often.
Okay.
So most of the portions are determined by some vendor, not by me or my wife. Relevancy is going to improve my health, and we're going to do it. That's the time frame. So anyway, this is kind of thought out. I mean, and if you have the strategy down, we're going to cut back. I'm going to exercise one more time a week. I'm going to track it. You really put yourself in a position where you really have a chance for success. And you know what they say, Jim?
What did they say?
Nothing tastes as good as being thin.
I never heard that one.
Isn't that a good line?
Argue with that. I will argue with that all day long. That's somebody who's not had my spaghetti and meatballs. That's somebody who's never had a pint of Grater's strawberry with chocolate chip ice cream. You ever had Grater's ice cream out of Cincinnati?
No, I've had Stroh's.
Oh my goodness. Next time you're in Cincinnati, go to a Grater's ice cream place, get yourself a single or maybe a baby cup of whatever. That's all.
So again, ask specific. So like basically, what do we really want? And if you don't think about all of the things that you would want, like it's almost, Jim, to be like, it's almost like a wouldn't it be great game. Wouldn't it be great if we had adjacencies right next to White Claw? Wouldn't it be great if we were priced at this level? Wouldn't it be great if we got a 5-case display? Wouldn't it be great if we were in advertising the paper once a month? Wouldn't it be great? And the more you play the wouldn't it be great game, next thing you know, you can have a laundry list of things to go, hey, okay, what's reasonable in terms of what we're actually asking for? It could be with the distributor in a supplier relationship. The supplier might be going, wouldn't it be great if we went from 2 incentives a year to 4? Wouldn't that be great? Now you better have a lot of support in the A step for you to think that you might get that. But again, the more specific we can be, starting point, ending point, and all that goes in it, critical. Measuring what source, all about strategy, all about support. And Jim, if I could challenge everyone who would ever watch this webinar, if our SMART goal has anything to do with trying to sell something in at retail, part of the A should include every time a sell sheet that's generated and rehearsal time baked in. I don't know how we would ever be best positioned to sell without supporting them with the sell sheet and then giving people the chance to practice in a classroom, in a bubble, before they get out to their account. I mean, that's gotta be just like core.
Yeah, I agree. It's the P step, right? It's part of the preparation.
Yeah. And that, but that's gonna then, but if we actually bake in time at our meetings to say, we're all gonna practice this, what's gonna happen when people hit the street? They're gonna be better and more capable of selling it in. So I can't imagine any of those at retail SMART goals where it wouldn't include that.
Yeah. You know, looking at this, because I hadn't really thought about the strategy being, tied to the attainable, that it all comes down to that part of it.
What were you doing the last time we had this meeting? I mean, were you just off the air when we were going through this? That exposure didn't generate understanding to you? Do you blame the facilitator on that? What the heck?
No. I blame the personal problem that I was dealing with at that time, Tom, and it was I don't want to share it here with the group, but I will say this though, instead of getting browbeat by my momentary lapse of memory, the thing about the strategy piece of it, I think that collectively for your team, if you're setting goals, is the level of confidence that actually instills in them. Because if the first thing is, hey, I'm setting this goal, and somebody goes, oh my God, that's, you really think, and then you start providing some strategy around how you're going to do it. I think then that's a good way of getting buy-in from your team when you think that through. It gives them confidence.
But
and
it would.
Then can you give somebody then confidence?
But Jim, I love and I appreciate your comments, because what you're telling me is basically, as you have thought about it, now you would say, yeah, that element, it would be a critical component. That, again, for you to say that means you must have seen a lot of salespeople and suppliers coming in that didn't have SMART goals at all.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know that SMART goals as a process was even introduced, that I was aware of them probably halfway through my career in the business. Everything before that is we're just setting a goal. I don't even remember where I first heard it.
Yeah. Relevancy, we talked about. Again, it's all about why is this goal important? I think it's important to communicate that. And then what's the time frame? So pretty simple stuff. Getting a little bit more detail into the S, whether we're talking about trying to sell a wholesaler, if any of our clients are on the supplier side, and we have a lot of them on the supplier side that want to sell into a wholesaler, you can just see all of the different elements that you could incorporate as part of the S. What do we want? Well, I want to make sure we got to get a truckload of product in here. You know, I want to be able to get access to your sales team. I want to be able to present and kick this thing off. I want to make sure there's point of sale available. You know, I want to make sure that we target the right place in the cooler, the right place on the floor, minimum number of cases. You know, what mix, if this is like a family of product, what's the mix? I mean, there's no shortage of the ways we can plan around that. Same with, you know, whether it's a supplier or a distributor selling into retail, you can see again the bottom component. Look how many questions are there. How many times are we specifically thinking about those elements when we're planning something to go, all right, what do we need to include? What would great look like? Wouldn't it be great if? Now, I'm not saying you have to have an answer for every one of these, but it just shouldn't be, we're trying to get, you know, this would be the lamest goal of all. We want to increase distribution on Fox Seltzer. I mean, there's nothing S about any of that, nothing specific about any of that. In addition, when you think about the Attainable, again, you can see both on the supplier side and the retail side, how detailed we can get in terms of the support we can provide to put us in the best position for success. Make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
All right, Jim and Sean, I'm going to go off slideshow mode, and I want you to help me build a quick little SMART goal. So let's say we're trying to get a display of Fox Seltzer into an account. What should be some of the elements of our specific aspect, the S aspect of our SMART goal? Give me some example. Come on.
Are you talking about into one account, or are you talking
into
about
one account? We're trying to build the display in one account. What is the S?
Well, I want to get a Fox Seltzer variety pack specifically.
Okay, so variety.
SKU. You have the SKU.
Okay.
With a 5-case display.
Okay. I'm just going to put here number of cases.
Yeah. And before the end of within 2 weeks.
Well, that's the time bound. We'll get that later.
Specific variety pack, number of cases, the location, which account, where the display is going to be.
Or Q4.
Yeah, that's timing.
But the PTC, good one.
Yep.
The signage.
You know what PTC is, Shawnee?
Price to consumer.
There you
go. POS. Yep. You know what POS is, Sean?
Point of sale.
Hey.
Piece of.
Some things, Jim, could go in S and in A, and one of them could be, we want to make sure that we're part of their social media.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're going to ask for it, right?
Yep.
But then we also know it's a critical component for A too. How are we going to have success? Well, if we have social media, frankly, will go in both. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Anything else in? Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Measurable. We're going to measure it in, VIP.
Yeah, in the route accounting software or VIP, whatever. Depletion.
Okay. Other things on attain. How are we going to attain this? How are we going to get this liquor store to put up the display?
Well, first we're going to build a display and take a picture of it so we know what it looks like, and including the point of sale that we're going to have with it.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, we're going to build a sell sheet that includes that picture. on it.
Yes.
And we're on that sell sheet is going to include,
So velocity and profit margin.
Yep. Love it.
yeah. Each team will rehearse that. Every
Yep.
team in the sales team and every broke-out team, multiple teams. Yeah, rehearsals.
Is that pretty good?
Yeah.
Not bad. Maybe we're gonna do a LTO. You know what that is, Shawnee?
Limited time offer.
There you go, Shawnee. He is veteran.
And we might cross merchandise that also.
With
Maybe with
wrapping paper.
What's, huh?
Christmas themed wrapping paper.
yep, oranges and wrapping paper. Why is
Very
this
relevant?
Sock.
Yeah, why?
Relevant because people like oranges during Christmas time.
Sock
Relevant seltzer
is on fire.
is fastest growing segment. It is now 10 share and an important
Time of year. Relevant because a lot of people drink around the holidays. Want to capitalize on the foot traffic.
yep huge volume opportunity during OND. You know what OND is, Shawnee?
Huge volume.
Tell him, Jimmy.
Not gonna.
Official, original.
No.
Hey, watch me.
It's a timing thing.
Oh, Q4.
Q4.
October, November, December. Why would you
Yep.
just put Q4?
Because that's what we call it, Sean. Don't blame me. Don't shoot me. I'm just a messenger.
Is JFM one? Or
JFM?
MAM?
JF just no.
Or MAM as in March, April, what? April, May, June.
Yeah, that's a thing. That is a
MAMs.
thing. That's a thing. So what do you
Jazz.
think? What do you think? Is this adequate SMART goal? And maybe one more thing on Attain. Kickoff meeting. And maybe one other one, incentive.
Mhm.
Now it's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, it is.
Now, I had spent some time on my own thinking about this, and let's see how ours is different than yours. Now, one, you were lame and said 5 cases. I said 20.
Well, I was just targeting the
20 retainable.
the small
20 is attainable.
the small store, small drive-through, almost small. The D account.
I said 20 cases. You said 5. I said 2 months, and exactly the months.
You gave the
Price point, window banner. Again, window banner is something that's really perfect for both S and A, because we want the window banner to get the attention drawn, but we're also going to provide the window banner as part of our strategy. So it's really both. VIP, build a sell sheet, offer a discount, 25% margin, display piece, POS, tasting demo, specifically. And I could even do Saturday. A Saturday, it could even be like 3 to 6 p.m.
by the produce department.
Yeah, I mean, the more detailed you are, because if you might go Saturday, okay, I'll give you the 8 to 10 o'clock time slot. Well, wait a minute. We don't want that.
Who do I look like?
We don't. No one's buying
I'm all
seltzer.
green.
At 8.
I was making my bones when you were going out with cheerleaders.
I saw that last night.
not what he said exactly, but
Something that was close to that.
well, I just don't want to for, some inappropriate language possibly.
What was his name? Ferdy?
Who?
The brother? Ferdy?
Fredo.
Fredo.
Oh boy, is he lame.
Fredo, don't
Yeah.
ever
Yeah.
go against the family again.
Michael, you don't come to Las Vegas and talk to a man like Mo Green like that.
Don't ever go against the family in public again.
No,
So what do you think?
I think it's fantastic.
What do you think, Shawnee?
I want
think-
to go. No.
I think that works really well. Just like going back through the session today, it makes me realize that there are probably a couple smart goals that we put together at the beginning of the year that I haven't revisited in a few months.
Yeah, probably a good idea to do so, right?
Yeah, you just get so caught up in kind of the day to day. And it's kind of one of those like, you know what you need to do, you know your KPIs, but the SMART goal really helps us understand when I need to get that accomplished by and kind of walking through step by step of how to do it, as opposed to just like, hey, I've got a number I need to hit. It's like, okay, well, how am I going to hit that? Like jotting it down really. It's almost like you get jotting down like your to-dos for the week. Like if you don't write them down sometimes, naturally 1 or 2 or 3 things might slip between the cracks.
Yeah.
I think
I don't think anyone ever regretted writing something down.
No.
What is it? I mean, isn't that really part of the measurement though? Because if you're tracking it and you're saying, okay, I'm going to visit progress daily, right? Or
Right.
once a week, I'm going to look at where we stand against the goal. Then it really,
I think that's a big part of strategy. The more we track and talk about something, the better likely we are we're going to hit it.
right.
I kind of like that. Other elements, again, I think this is just kind of an important element of the A step, that support that we can provide our teams. And I really do think not only create, and I think the Fox selling system has made this so easy with the ability to create these sell sheets that not only have features and benefits of things that we should be mentioning that are important, and we can rehearse those things, but then most importantly, getting people prepared to speak to the revenue impact, the profit impact, and again, getting people to rehearse, because while the sell sheet doesn't present itself, I can't imagine if the second or third time someone rehearsed, their level of confidence is going to skyrocket. Right?
Yes.
And that needs to be part of the A step. It needs to be part of it. And Jim, I mean, how many distributors are out there right now trying to get August incentives accomplished, and those well-intended, well-run, really successful distributors and suppliers that have not created a sell sheet and have not required rehearsal? Are we talking 90%? I mean, in the 90s?
Yeah, I think that they almost are relying on the MBOs as their smart.
Just the motivation. Just the MBO is the motivation, and then let people figure it out.
Yeah. If they're going to affect their pocket, then they'll find a way to do it. And then I think what happens then is they start relying on relationship selling, which is the fallback comfort way that many of them are used to in the first place. They keep going back to the same place.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, I'm sure leaders, many of them think we're giving them an incentive. They know their customers, they'll get it done. But it is relationship selling. It's not anything that we would be ultimately proud of in terms of, tying it back to our vision of being the best or the go-to or the number one choice for our customer. That's not going to cut it. So I really truly believe based on past experience that this whole idea of fishing where the fish are is a hindrance. And I think it limits people. And because you just pointed out something earlier when you said, I can't remember what we were talking about, but it had something you said, well, I think that the argument could be made that that's exactly why you would want to go there. Oh, Bud Light as an example. You were talking about, well, you don't really need to. I think you should pay more attention on the slower
volume items. That's what it was. You were talking about in terms of
Ones
where-
that need more hands selling. Yeah.
and when I think about the whole idea of fishing where the fish are, we all know the 80-20 rule. 20% of the 80% of the volume is going to come from 20% of the account base. But when you still think of all of those other accounts that are out there that could be by using SMART goals, an opportunity. I know walking into accounts that were just, the owner's not motivated, the store doesn't look like it is inviting, and you think you're just going to be wasting your time by I would say that probably most people don't go in there with the idea of helping that retailer. They really truly don't. They go
I
in there
think you're right.
of getting an order and getting on to the next place.
Yep. I think you're right. We talk about selling stories and creating sell sheets. And again, that is the combination of features and benefits and having a good handle on that. Again, I do think that's part of planning and, part of our SMART goal from the standpoint of, supporting the team with the things that are most relevant in terms of what we're offering as support and i.e. features and how it ultimately benefits the customer. And those benefits obviously come through this whole Sprite acronym, which again, how many people out there today are selling and they're not mentioning any benefits, probably many, so not good process. And even the fundamental, which I do think can drive the creation of a sell sheet, is this idea of this T-chart, which can become a great way to put people in the position to have to practice. Here is what we have, and this is the benefit to the customer. Now, the way to do this the right way, in my opinion, would be to always assign a need. Hey, if the customer had a profit need, what would it sound like? Let someone practice and then give it to the next person. Hey, now the need changes. It's sales. Would the pitch change a bit? Of course it would. And if it was traffic, it would change again, or a higher ring, or whatever the need was. And again, you just think about like what this looks like. And so this is a sell sheet that, again, I just took this from one of our decks that we would have, had, and that the shoots would have built. But again, you can see on the sell sheet, it's got the needs the customer has on the upper left, what we're trying to get accomplished. So some of the S is in that, that middle column there. And then some of the support is our story. So look at the features and benefits on the right-hand side there. There's pictures of, package graphics there. And then at the bottom, we outline the revenue and profit, and even the margin impact that if you look at it, I mean, I think all three of us, if we were put under the gun right now, we probably would be able to get through a presentation of this sell sheet relatively easily. But if we had to do it 3 times, we'd be really good at it. That's no different than our clients. And that's no different than if you worked for Deschutes or just were Deschutes distributor. It really wouldn't matter. But, this is something, Jim, that again, I think you and I and Sean, I think you would agree. We want our clients building more of these. This is the key to more productivity. These sell sheets work.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, I did a seminar. I'm trying to think when it was. I think it was Monday. And we had 175 people on this training webinar. One of the questions I asked, you might remember this, Sean. I asked, it was a poll, true or false? And I'd be curious to see what you would answer. True or false? My customer always asks me about the revenue and profit impact of my suggestions. What do you think? It was like 70% answered one way, 30% the other way. Do you have any idea, Jim, what the 70% was?
It was no, they don't.
They don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And why don't they?
Because I don't think you have the answer to it.
They wouldn't. They just wouldn't expect anyone to have an answer to it.
Right.
And so over time,
nobody brought it up. Nobody ever brings it up to them.
Right. And so over time, you don't expect it. So how much is this going to help our clients stand out?
Yeah. I think it's, well, it'd be curious, and you don't have to get into all who it was, but I would imagine on-premise people probably would be more inclined to say, yeah, they do. You know, what I'm going to make.
That's a good, I don't know if you're right. You might be right. I have to think about it. I can't say that I 100% buy into what you just said. You might be right.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember over time in my career that there were retailers when you're walking in, you're talking about having a new, hey, I have this thing, I want to get in. How much? What do you want to sell it for? You know, what do you, what's that margin? You know, no, I need 30%, you know, or I'm not interested.
Well, hey, a little recap here, so obviously, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get more things done. So we have to influence our teams to be following the guidance and the support that we're providing and accepting nothing less culturally. And we're going to do it by having these SMART goals, which really put us in the best position to have a good handle on exactly what we're asking for and a really good handle on how we're going to get it accomplished. So the S and the A steps. And it does come down to within the Fox selling system. One of the things that I know we're really proud of, and I would love to see the usage continue to rise, would be getting more and more and more of these sell sheets in the hands of our salespeople, because to me, it's the key to greater productivity. It's the key to our clients getting a better return on their investment. That's what it's all about. Any last words of wisdom, Sean?
No, I know that one of the things that we've talked about that's in the kind of like to-do list for our kind of back-end IT team is trying to figure out how to add that time-bound portion or like subset of the sell sheet into the sell sheet.
Yeah.
So, hey, like when we're quantifying the suggestion of or quantifying the impact of our suggestion, it is a little bit more powerful if we're able to do that in a week, in 2 weeks versus 2 months. So if we can showcase that within the sell sheet, that's another little kind of toggle drop down that we were planning on adding. And then we've also gotten some suggestions about potentially having like a SKU or product comparison. So when we always talk about, hey, we want to bring this in, but then we mentioned like retailers will sometimes say, well, I got to figure out what I'm going to take out. So if we had some sort of product comparison about rate of sale or velocity, CWD, a way to showcase if we bring this in versus taking this out, this is going to happen to your overall sales or profit. Those are additions we're trying to make to the sell sheets. But if anyone else has other suggestions, not only on the sell sheets, but anything in the system, we've got a pretty sharp IT team in the background that can make a lot of those edits in, if not a couple weeks, a couple days. And we just want to continue to optimize the platform to make sure that people are using it as much as they can. So all suggestions are always welcome.
Jimmy?
Good one.
Thank you.
And in addition to what Sean said, I think that being able to add in a SMART goal tool into the system, even if it's as a support. So
I think Scott was all over that, right? It's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, download that, and then some other things that I think offline we can discuss in terms of trying to incorporate this with other functions and systems that wholesalers and suppliers might have at their disposal, whether it be a CRM that can help track and monitor or identify where opportunities might exist. I think this is a topic that we can use the SMART goal process and then actually put some application like you did in that last exercise. I think there's more work that we can do as a team and provide that guidance, support, coaching to clients in terms of how they can be more effective in that regard through the tools. I love it. There's never a time, I don't care. I mean, Tom, you and I have been working together for it's a while now. I mean, just on with this for the last 4 years, and then at least 7 years prior to that. And there's never a time that I don't, walk away from, the encounter with something I hadn't thought about or reminded of. It's motivating.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. No, and I would agree. I think Sean his point earlier about, hey, we are all in on SMART goals, but boy, there's things that, going through today's program, probably things that we should be revisiting and editing and upgrading, because that's going to help us attain the things that are important to us. And I think what we talked about yesterday, which a lot of our clients will see the fruits of what we talked about yesterday, is a way for us to attain at levels that we're going to be proud of ultimately. So good stuff, Jim. Good stuff, Sean. Thank you very much. I think we knocked this out in about an hour and a half, which was great. And some of the Michigan contact, that's kind of a freebie. We'll give them that stuff for free.
Exactly.
No extra charge with that.
Or it might get edited out depending on what he does in the editing room. So
yeah,
all right. Well,
kind of a make or break year for our boy Harbaugh. So we'll see.
I think so.
Anyway,
see if his back's up against the wall, with whether or not he can.
If he can deliver, he better have his S and A's solid.
Yeah.
Specifically, I want to go 11-0. We're going to do it by winning the line of scrimmage, protecting that quarterback,
whoever that might be.
Anyway, good stuff, everybody. Thanks for watching. We look forward to next month. We'll get into developing people. So good luck, good selling, and good SMART goal planning.
Right on.
Thanks, everybody.